hardest things a person can do is to walk contrary to popular belief, contrary to society's rules and the world's point of view. In the midst of all the masquerading that this generation is involved in, there is one thing that cannot be faked, and that is the fruits that we bear.
Our aim is to broadcast how we live the ancient scriptures in modern society, how we apply the principles of old in a lawless generation. Can it be done? Few of the ways through which we try to accomplish our goal are preaching, voluntary work, relevant discussions, prayer, and laughter.
The path to knowledge begins with a question.
True freedom comes by understanding.
In such a special way, you are my only Lord. Yes, you're my all in all. Seeking you as a precious, lost and given, I'd be alone. You are my only Lord. Jesus.
welcome to some wonderful, powerful songs. Know that this week's topic is called white supremacy, and now, like last month, we dealt with a topic called Negro Land, and the third topic that we touched was called democracy. African perspective. So, how does democracy influence the countries from which our parents come from, from which many Africans come from? Today, we'll talk about democracy, and we labeled the title, we called it Democracy Western Perspective. Last week, we talked about the whitewashing of history, and the week before that, we talked about the benefits of slavery. And this month's theme is called white supremacy. If you missed any of the previous shows, go to our videos on Facebook. You'll be able to rewatch all the shows that we did and everything that we said. This is the hour of restoration. In a short 2 to 3 minutes, we'll start with a table talk session that we have for today. Once again, the topic is called Democracy Western Perspective.
The blood of Jesus, I prevail over sickness. Hallelujah. See, by the blood of Jesus, I prevail over sickness. Come on. See, I prevail. Oh, I prevail. Oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes. I prevail. I prevail. Come on, let me sing. Say, I prevail. Thank you, Jesus. I prevail. Oh, let's see, I prevail. I prevail. Yes, I prevail. Come on, sing it with me. Yes, I prevail. Come on, put your hands on yourselves and yes, yes, I prevail over poverty. I prevail over sickness and disease. Yes, I prevail, I prevail, I prevail. Yes, I, oh, I prevail. Yes, I prevail. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Come and quench this thirsting of my soul. Bread from heaven, fill me till I want you. Fill me till I want more. Fill my cup, fill it up and make me whole. Come on, lift those voices, sing it one more time. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Yes, I lift it up. Come and quench this thirsting of my soul. Say, bread from heaven, fill me till I want to go. Fill my cup, fill it up and make me whole.
Welcome once again to the hour of restoration. Today's topic is called Democracy from the Western Perspective. We have touched a lot in these last 1.5 months. We started with a topic, Negro Land, last month. We touched heavy topics, things which people would say that, does this have to do with Scripture? But we proved also from Scripture and also from our own experiences that this is actually active in the life of not only believers, whether you believe or you do not believe. When you are black, this touches you. So the topic last month was Negro Land, and now we are shifting to a topic, or we have shifted to a topic called white supremacy. Is this true? Is this active? Does this touch us? Does this influence us? Should we pray about it? Should we fast about it? What should we do? But the topic is of this whole month is called white supremacy, and every week we are touching topics that has to do with the theme of this month, white supremacy. And today's topic is called democracy. And now we look at democracy from a Western perspective. When people think about democracy, it's usually viewed as a political strategy to govern your country. And when you look at history in itself, you look at how slavery entered Africa. They always say that the Western people or the Europeans brought democracy to the Africans, and that's beneficial for them. So now we are last week or last month we looked at how has this affected Africa. So how has a European way of leading a country affected Africa? So if you missed that, go back to last month's session. You can see the whole video online. And today we'll talk about the origins of democracy. So the place where democracy comes from. And we'll try to look at also how does this affect us as a people. And for today, I have a few notions. It's not necessarily a debate, but I have a few notions and I have a few open questions. You guys will answer the notions or the questions and always state why you think what you guys think. So also onto the listeners, if you have anything to say, anything to add, drop it underneath the Facebook live video. We'll try to make it part of today's discussion. So on my right is Brother Shalom Anand. The last time I saw you live, you had hair.
Oh, yeah.
Today you don't have hair anymore.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
But Shalom, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Yeah, as you can see, as you have said, my hair is gone, but yeah.
I'm liking the style. It's going somewhere.
It's going somewhere. Yeah, man. But
Sister Steph, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really grateful for today, to be honest.
You are grateful for
I'm very
today.
grateful for today.
And why are you grateful for today?
Well, I woke up this morning and I realized that I had a very short night. And
Prayer all night.
what's prayer?
but I knew why I woke up and I knew what I had to do today. And I'm here. I'm here, and I'm very grateful to have an interesting topic for today that we can discuss and dive into.
Nice. And before we get into last week's topic, this week's topic, I'm sorry. Last week I thought we really had an interesting show, and the topic was really relevant and was called whitewashing of history. And I think I did a discussion with you, right?
Yeah,
So I have to, and Abigail, but I asked the question to Shalom then, like, the topic of last week was whitewashing of history. Whitewashing. So whitewashing. I said also in the intro of last week, like, is this relevant? Should we talk about it? Is this something spiritual? But I just want to ask you one question. Do you think, or how do you think that whitewashing affects black people? And do you think it affects black people at
Previous
all?
topic.
No, just a notion.
Just-
Like this was last week, but I just want to ask you the question because you weren't there last week. But I also want to know your opinion on that. So how do you think whitewashing affected black people? And do you think it affected black people at all?
I surely believe that that whitewashing affects black people. To give a short answer, in the way we view ourselves, I think the superior part of it, as in the white being the superior, we are diminishing then our own abilities and the way we see to ourselves. I think it has effect, surely. It affects us in various ways.
In various ways. Subconsciously.
We are acting, we want to be a white person, but it would never work.
The melanin is
and
too
then
much.
it contrasts, and then you can see confusion and all these things. So yeah.
So once again, if you missed it, review last week's topic. But today, we are talking about democracy of the Western perspective. And I'll ask you, Steph, maybe I already gave a glimpse of the answer in the intro, but how would you define democracy? Like, what are for you, like, maybe the key points or the symptoms of democracy?
For me, democracy is simply a group of people, a government, a system that has structure, It includes laws and regulations for a country, for a nation, and that system will make sure that everything goes accordingly. And also, at the same time, the people, the nation can also come with their own ideas. They can also bring up their thoughts and perspective, how to govern the whole country.
Okay, so the people, like democracy is a system wherein the people influence how the country is governed.
Yeah. So both the government and the people can do that together.
Can make decisions together. Okay, okay. And as I said also in the intro, like when you study history, and also we covered it last month also briefly, not even briefly, but we covered it. Yeah, we speak about democracy and how it entered Africa, and the first notion I have is to you, Shalom, because the sides were kind of divided. Is democracy a good way for an African country to rule its nation? And the first notion that I have, like Western democracy has created a great example on how to govern a country. So when we look at countries like in which we live, the Netherlands, Germany, it's a great example on how to govern a country. However, black nations, and I think primarily African, sub-Saharan African nations, fail to follow this example.
If we would say, great, because that part is already whitewashing, to be honest.
Oh.
To be true, because I've realized when I was when you study the communism and in their countries and how people are explaining and how it has been better their countries like Cuba and Russia, they bring certain views. You would be like, whoa, actually it is actually going that well, better than we thought. But because the media's from the democracy world, then you would see that man, actually everything a part of democracy is bad. So to say the reason why I said the word great is already in whitewashing part is that it's because if you realize that then an African country can also govern their system on their own, which they previously had, and that was already also great. I think everybody from their own view, it's great.
Okay, so you think like if we say that democracy is great, for example, it's because we have been influenced in thinking that it's great because this media has only showed us that this is the way to govern your country.
But there are also a lot of holes in democracy, but you will never.
But okay, what for example are the holes? Because like whether you agree or disagree, you like it or you don't like it, the countries, primarily the Western countries, they
developing.
Are prospering, they are developing.
True.
Things are going forward.
So, in the end, it's all about the results.
In the end, we only want to talk
it's all about
results.
results.
So you said there are holes in democracy. Like what do you mean with holes in democracy?
Conflict, as in parties being, for example, now you can really see some fruits of democracy giving power to the people. For example, Brexit. In the end, everybody regrets their choices, literally. For example, I'm not the one, or I don't have any opinion about the American president, to be honest, but people really regret that.
You don't have opinion about Donald Trump?
No, I don't.
Oh, you mean you don't really care what he's doing?
It doesn't affect me, so I will not speak of, Donald Trump is bad or good. But from the stories I hear from those in America and those who really follow, they also regret the choices that has been made. So how much power would you give to your people? And you have like China, because when you're, I like this quote, when you're the least, then you can move unexpected, and you can really move from left to right, and all of a sudden you can. When you're in the open, then you see the true investment that you have done. Like communism, China was on a country on their own. No, they closed all their borders, and then people communism, all of a sudden now China's the not next hot topic.
And
I think Africa can also have that.
A small part of what you said was for example, when in this world something that's really active, you named it was Brexit.
Yeah.
And for example, Donald Trump being president was a few years ago, but it's still relevant.
Yeah.
And as you said, people have regretted their opinions and decisions and their votes.
And it affects daily activities.
Daily. And then you ask the question, like, how much power would you give to the people? And then you mention China. And so then I'm wondering, like if we bring this to, for example, our countries and African nations, and you see that this is also something that happens frequently. Like, people vote, and 1 week after voting or having they complain. I saw it in my house. My parents did it.
The barber shops.
It's the topic of the day. Always.
Steph, so I have a question to you. So sometimes democracy doesn't work, but do you think that African countries, for example, should have a king instead of political parties, or I don't know how you call it, or having to vote? Do you think that they should have one supreme ruler or king?
Of course, yes. It has always been like that from the beginning. And if you can see, most of the sub-Saharan African countries, they have this system. The democracy is present, but at the same time, there are also still kings who are ruling in small communities or bigger communities in cities. They are there, but because they look at
leaders of tribes, for example.
Yes, but because they look at the Western world and they see that it works, so they also want to look up to that system. Because either way, they compare and they see that, oh, they are prospering.
Yeah,
they are doing better. So it must also fit the African countries. That's the way to govern the country.
And like one other notion that I have, it's a sidetrack from what we are discussing now, but the notion that I have has to do with kind of what you said, because you said that a lot of African, for example, kings or presidents, they always look at what is the Western world doing, what are literally white people doing, and they try to take it in. But another part of what is happening is when it goes bad, for example, in African countries, especially the diaspora, so people who are led out of the African countries, we always shift blames, kind of. We point fingers and we say usually it's because of white people. So the notion that I have is also, again, to use that, like blaming white people for black people's problems is just being hypocritical.
Why hypocritical?
Yeah, it sounds very harsh, but it is the truth, because we always point fingers at other people. So
you agree that then, like blaming white people for our problem is being hypocritical?
Because it's both sides. We also have the blame. We also play a bigger role in this. But it's not always. It's like nowadays everybody is pointing finger at other people. They blame the white people because they came to us and they took over, and what was already there, they just ignored everything, and then they imposed those things on us. And if you're really honest, look around in your own community, you see that we come up with a lot of excuses. We have so many qualities and abilities to do it ourselves, but we bring up excuses. We look at the bad side always, and I'm forgetting what we are capable of doing.
Yeah, but for instance, come on, we have been reprogrammed 400 years. What do you expect in 50 years? How honest? I'm just playing with you. What do you expect in 50 years if you have been reprogrammed 400 years?
So what do you mean? So
no, but as in, because you said then if certain people are then always blaming the white, I can understand them. That's all what I'm saying.
But what do you achieve by blaming other people? Because then you will get stuck in the same mess that is already there.
In a cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Shalom,
that's why I said, what do you expect after 50 years?
Nothing different.
Or 100 years?
It will even get worse.
But
So
like
we blame more.
like Shalom,
No,
Shalom.
blame
If
more,
you
but the
like
condition.
because
Oh,
I
oh.
understand I understand what you said, because when you look at the history of the black man, for example, you see that for hundreds of years he has
Yeah.
been subjugated to like strategic
Levels.
attacks, levels,
Levels.
dimensions,
Hey.
everything.
Come
like
on.
like the way
Breaking the
he
mind,
has
the
been subjugated
family.
is so sophisticated that you can't phantom it. But what you said, that you can understand people shifting blames, but what do you think are our own loopholes? Because I think that we should look at our own
Yes. First.
mistakes also.
Yeah.
And it's really fun that you said, because she was saying I was about to ask her that question. So I really find sorry that you find asking me, because she said we also have our own blames, or we also have our own shortcomings. I was about to ask, what do you have? What do you then also see as the shortcomings that black have that we can do? So I know you're asking me that question, but because I had that question already for her,
You
I
just
wanted
answer
to
the
shift.
question because it was directed to you.
Shalom, what do you think, like before we get into shifting, and we already know what happened in history, we already know how we have been reprogrammed.
As long as we can
everything happened.
agree on that.
That's true. And it
Okay.
happened. But
Okay.
like nowadays when you go to African countries, it's not as if you see a European president sitting on the throne.
No,
Do you understand? It's a
no.
black man, it's your brother, it's
my
your
bro-
uncle. But what are our own shortcomings? What should we change in order to cause our country, for example, to prosper?
Then I would use and the example of China. I think that's echt gewoon something practical, eh? Because they also realize that, whoa, at a certain point, we are giving too much power away. So then they just close borders. And it's a harsh, because if we would do that, the debt that we will have now, so it's not that easy. But what I would say, the advice that we always give also during the show, in our own, in our personal lives, in our day-to-day life, as in set yourself apart, detox everything first. And I think that's what, it's very difficult to do, to set apart the whole
biggest
country.
skill.
It's another level, but that's the only thing I can, or that's that advice that I can give. Gewoon as in, set yourself apart as a country, detox everything. Short, like for example, maybe, actually we also need to have a sort African mix, Brexit African mix.
Oh my goodness.
Gewoon African mix. We will just exit.
Wow. Exit
know-
what actually?
Gewoon from
For
democracy.
Okay. So that means that instead of democracy, then we should go or move on to dictatorship. Is that what you?
I don't know. To be honest, because that's also one thing I learned also from a brother Jeff when I did the debate with him. I don't know if dictatorship or kingship or what is
But just
the right
one
way.
person
But
who
what we
rules.
know is that we have traditions. We have a strong, developed tradition, and if you follow that, if your tradition says do your do kingships or elders or whatever, then follow that.
And like because of what you said, like Brexit was according to the people of the UK, was an attempt or a way that they saw to better and progress their country by leaving the European the EU and being established like on their own. But something, for example, that brings up heavy debate also in Africa is, for example, foreign aid. Like foreign aid, and you said we should exit whatever. But before I go to Steph, I'll remain with you, Shalom. Like you said, pull out of all this unifying and be on your own. But how do you think with foreign aid? Do you think that that's something we should? It kills people.
I think so. Yeah, it's gewoon as in the medicine world.
I'm not talking about medicine alone, because we get aid, and so like when you see the loans that the African country, it's not that's also a financial aspect or a business aspect to it, but it's a form of helping. But so all type of foreign aids. Don't you think that that's also beneficial to African countries?
At the moment, I have to be honest, I'm not ruling a country, so I don't know the ins and outs and the pros and the cons I'm just speaking my mind, but if I would say and I'll just make it as simple as possible. If I would say foreign aid, of course, now you would see it. It helps people to in a certain way. To people, the schools, the disabled people, they are getting some help, and I cannot say it's not helping the country, but what I'm afraid of is the moment when you give foreign aid, like foreign aid, then you also have a backdoor, because that means you have power of that country, and that's why it says it kills people, because now it's also a hot topic now in Ghana. The gold mining. Another race is coming into an African country, and they're helping building streets. But behind the scenes, people are killed. You know, so that's what I mean. So in another way, it seems good, but there's always a backdoor, and that kills a lot of mentally people, mental, spiritual, and so I would say cut it also off and build everything.
Wow, like it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. I do agree, because the depths.
Not only the depths, but when you look at media alone, and unfortunately, that's what people, let's say in the diaspora and in the Western countries, can only look at the media. They have to judge based on media. You'll see that foreign aid has been something that has helped a lot of people when it comes to diseases. And so Steph, like just to know whether you agree, like, do you think that foreign aid is also something that African countries, for example, should cut off and should leave behind them and not accept foreign aid anymore? Do you think that is what they should do?
Well, this is a little bit difficult, because I know how it can be very helpful, but at the same time also we have everything already in our own possession. We have it, the resources, the tools. So maybe it can only be helpful in the beginning, just build up a program just for some 1 or 2 phases, and then you move on, or you just become self-reliant, because just to cut everything out, at least you need something. You still need something. You need somebody to guide you through the process, and then you can cut it out.
Okay. That's clear, because like when you also look at when you do your research about foreign aid,
even ourselves as African, in the diaspora, we go back because we have gained so much knowledge. We went to school, we studied, so with that
so
knowledge,
you like the Western?
No, but at least you can give back, you can do something. So instead
Okay.
of waiting for the white people to structure everything, you got the benefit here. So why won't you use that same knowledge to implement it there?
It depends, because of course, as a human or individual, you are very limited in the amount of people that you can help, and as a country or nation, your reach is just way bigger than an individual would have. But the next question or notion that I have has to do with democracy again in itself, but this is about whether there is democracy or not, because some people say that like our vote counts. Other people say that whether you vote or you do not
It doesn't
vote,
matter.
there's already a program and the program is set. So Shalom, do you think that your vote, like when you vote and when you go out to set, let's say, make your voice to be heard, do you think it makes a difference?
Yeah. According to the system, you
No. Do you think
from a Western perspective, if I want PVDA, I have to convince a lot of people also to vote PVDA, and they have certain rules and regulations.
But do you agree with all the rules and regulations?
That's even another question.
Yeah.
Do you think that your vote matters? Do you think that, like, let's say, do you think that you can actually vote and other people can vote and it will actually change
the direction of the country?
The direction of the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you
be
vote?
honest.
Do you vote? First of all, do you vote?
If I can vote, I vote, but I never vote.
so you don't vote. So
I don't have that necessity to vote, to be honest. I'm just honest, yeah. I don't.
So do you then actually believe that your vote makes a difference?
Otherwise, you would have done it or not.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I also have various examples wherein it took a whole other way. So that's
examples.
why. But in a certain way, I do. To be honest, the reason why I don't have the necessity to really vote for ik moet echt vote stemmen is because what would change?
Shalom, this is the question I'm asking.
Yeah, but that's why. But then I'm thinking I'm also contradicting myself then because with the examples that I have. Because if I would say that, how did Hitler came into power? Then it also by voting, and that turned the whole Second World War, for example. So voting can make a difference.
Yeah.
But I think they have also learned from their mistakes, the Second World War, that the system itself has even governed themselves in a certain way that even though you vote, you can never go
right.
you can go right, but you can never go too much right. You can go left, but never too much left. So knowing that the democracy system has been developed because it's been established thousands of years. They have fall stand up. I think they've come now to a point that, okay, guys, this is our
box, for example.
Our borders. Yeah, this is our box. So if you make vote, you can go a bit to here, you can go a bit to here, but you can never make that drastic change. And maybe I want that drastic change, and for that part, no, I don't. That's why for that part, I don't believe in voting.
Wow, like that's also, for example, why many, for example, or young people a lot, they never feel like anything changes in the country. Many young people were like, hey, voting, I don't need to vote because the thing will still go on. I don't see how it affects my life. I don't see how my voice is being heard.
And your vote, when
I'm
you
only
don't
paying
vote,
more.
it will go to the majority.
Yeah.
That's why they try to tell people that you have to vote. Otherwise, automatically,
your vote goes to the majority.
Yes,
so you can rather vote empty, because that's an option, right? When you vote, I vote for nothing. As I know.
Really?
If someone knows better, correct me. But as I've understood, you can vote for like other like as out of the other box.
I didn't know. I never voted before. Never, and I won't.
I'm strong. Steve.
And in the last few minutes that we have, I want also to talk about something that for example, has a lot of black people in bitterness, and a lot of black people blame everyone and everything again for their for what is happening to them. And the question that I have has to do with how white people benefit from what has happened to us as a race. And the notion says, do you think that all white people benefit from the system we are in? Like do you think that all white people, let's say, or let me just change the notion, because as for benefiting, it's obvious that everyone benefits from what's happening.
She goes to Africa because if I write benefits,
everyone benefits. But how can you blame or can you even blame all white people for what is happening? Because that's something that's really, for especially in countries like the U.S., it's like some black people have an hatred towards everyone. And
you mean all races or
no, let's say a lot of black people, let's say, blame every white person. So they see a white man, they are angry. They see a sister, a white sister, they are angry, and they blame them for what has happened to us as a nation. And do you think that is justified? That's just the last question that I have. How do you think that a person should deal with that in the first place?
I think we already discussed this, that the self-hatred is not necessary. It's still happening, of course. But we should accept our flaws, the mistakes we made. We should learn from them and not repeat those things. And always look at what can you improve. We easily look at the things that cause us problem, but it's in our mind, our mindset. It's not really like problem solving, but always looking at the problem, and then you remain in the same
cycle
thing. Yeah.
And Shalom, what's your stance on that? Because I think you also have seen that maybe on videos, whatever. having a bitterness, hatred, whatever towards
Kiss my boot.
European people. And do you think that that's okay? Correct.
No. To be
And
honest.
how do you think that we should deal with that? Because some people are not consciously, they don't want it, but when they study too much, they get too bitter.
Yeah.
And that's an
yeah.
effect
That's
of or result of like study. But how do you think that a person in that situation should deal with it?
I think when you realize that at a certain point you were also ignorant as a black person, and you were also ignorant. You're also operating in a certain way, making subconsciously decisions you wouldn't do if you have not been trained with. So I'm not even talking about democracy or so, but even as a lifestyle, the sins that you do, the way you treat people, the way your parents has raised you up. If you realize that at a certain point I was also ignorant, so now you have studied 2% more, of course you can become bitter. I can understand that you will become bitter, like when you see the movie as When They See Us and so, and everybody's stirred up. But you have to, but when you realize that I was also in that stage, why would I then also blame the other if that person is currently in that stage? That means you're not mature. That means you don't understand life in its all, because maybe you also have a blind spot for other things, but people also not. And if other people would have that bitterness towards you for that blind spot, yeah, then it's not fair. So that's I really like what the Messiah says, because that the parable that he gives when he talks about the king was forgiving someone for a really big great debt. But that same person, he couldn't forgive someone for something small. So when you realize that, whoa, I have also been forgiving for the many blind spots that I have. Why can I not also just forgive another person?
Wow.
So
some people would say that you are mad. No, really, because forgiveness, when you say something about forgive, in some a lot of black people, it triggers a way, like, again, talking about forgiveness, talking about this, talking about that. But
I don't say forgive and don't be wise. Eh?
Yeah, I understand.
I don't say don't forgive and you will be ignorant. And no. You have your knowledge and you operate according to it. But I wouldn't say forgive, but of course it takes time to remove that bitterness. But what I'm trying to say is that realize also that you were also once in that stage and just have understanding.
And to conclude this, we are primarily talking about individuals and not a race, let's say, because people sometimes can become real bitter against individuals and issue out or allow their anger to rest on individual people who by themselves don't have a lot of influence on what has happened to you as a people or a nation or something like that. And now to conclude this, let's move to what does, for example, the scripture also say about this topic. Thank you guys for joining me today. You were awesome this whole month. And unto the listeners, I say, if you missed also the part about democracy in African perspective, know that you can rewatch the show on Facebook or listen to the show once again on SoundCloud. This was the first part of today's show, and after this song we'll move to the second part of today's show. Tell a friend to tune in. See you in 2 to 3 minutes.
Spirit over in this place. Spirit over. Spirit over in this place. Touch everyone. Let there be an infilling of His Spirit. Spirit over. Fill us up in this place. Spirit over. Fill us up in this place. Spirit over. Fill us up in this place. Spirit over. We call you Jesus.
This will be, once again, the third topic of this month's theme. We touched first on who benefited or how have the other nations, races, countries benefited of slavery. Then we touched the whitewashing of history. Today we are about to touch, and we are touching democracy according to, let's say, Western perspective. Tell a friend to tune in. If you have any questions, drop them underneath the Facebook Live video.
We want more of you. We want more of you. We want more of you. Let out your power in us. Let out your spirit in us. Let out your glory in us. We want more of you. We want more of you, God. We want more.
Shalom, shalom, shalom unto all our listeners worldwide. This is Minister Chris from Hour of Restoration. We rise and we give glory and honor unto Yahuwah, our Elohim, for yet another day that he has granted unto us, for yet another opportunity that he has given unto the sons of men, so that they may blow the trumpet, so that his people may be alerted concerning the times and concerning the seasons. The Bible says concerning the times and seasons, ye have no need that anyone should tell you, for ye are children of the light and not of darkness. Therefore the word of Elohim is our light, and whenever we read into that word, we are able to determine the spiritual atmosphere. We rise and give glory unto Elohim, and we bear witness that there is but one Elohim, and that besides him there is none. He is the one who revealed himself unto the prophets of old, and the prophets of old, by the uttering of the Ruach, were able to give unto us scriptures. Prophets rising up early in the morning, declaring the ways of Elohim, 100, 200 years apart from each other. But when they would give their prophecies, it would sink, making you think that it is but one author who wrote it. And the author is the Spirit of Elohim. And the same Spirit of Elohim, which is now working in us, has ordained us that we ought to preach, which is the gospel, unto all the four corners of the world, so that his children may wake up. For the sleeping of his children is the delay of the coming of Elohim. And when all his children have woken up, that is when you shall see the sign of the Son of Man in heavens. So unto all the listeners worldwide, from the left or from the right, whatsoever part of the world you have found yourself, may your eyes be opened today, and may your ears pop open today, that you may understand a topic which to some is controversial and which to others is meaningless. But it will show you that there is meaning behind everything. Even when you see a tree in the wilderness, you may think that what has a tree has to do with anything. But you don't know that the tree is a reflection of the tree of life. There is nothing you have on this earth that does not resonate somewhere in the spiritual atmosphere. So with today's topic, I will speak a bit fast because we have much to cover. I was going through it this morning, and sleep went away from me. I looked at everything and I was like, wow, this is something it should take roughly about 4 hours, meaning an additional month. However, we shall see how the Ruach will lead, and we shall see where we will end with regard to democracy from a Western perspective. If you are able to grasp this, then you will read the Bible in a different light, in a different setting. Because many people think that, what has democracy to do with me? And I heard the brothers and sisters giving their point of views and their opinions. But there's also democracy found in the Bible. There is also democracy found in the Bible, which some people maybe don't know. So let's look at things. But before we start, I want you to know that we may speak a lot about America today, because you have to understand that America is a small miniature version of the utopia of the devil. Everything that happens in America is always copied worldwide. If America says left, the world says left. If America says right, the world says right. So I may use examples of America, using America as a backdrop because it symbolizes the whole world. So give me the book of Job to start. I hope you have your pens and your notes so you can go over it, because it's a lot, but let's see how things will go. Job 9:24. Just to lay the foundation for some minutes.
Job chapter 9 verse 24.
Go ahead.
The earth is given.
The Bible says that the earth is given.
Into the hand of the wicked.
Not into the hands, plural. The earth is given into the hand
of the wicked.
Of the wicked.
He covers the faces.
And he then in his turn covers the faces.
Of the judges thereof.
Of the judges, plural. The world is given into the hand.
The hand of
the wicked. And he, that wicked one, covers the faces of the judges thereof.
If not.
If that was not the case.
Where and who is
Where and who is this one? This is a mystical question. But we will unravel it today. So give me now, to answer this by scripture, give me the second book of Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4. The world is given into the hand of the wicked, and he covered the faces of the judges thereof. Who is this wicked unto whom the world is given to?
2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4.
Go ahead.
In whom the L of this world.
In whom the
L or God of this world.
In whom the God of this world
has blinded the minds.
So there is a God of this world. And this God of this world is not Elohim. Many people think he is. He is not. Elohim has never been the God of this world. The first God of this world was Adam. He was the God of this world. After he committed treason and sin, he forfeited his godliness, his authority, his power, and he gave it unto the enemy to rule in his stead. That's what the Bible says in John 10:10. The thief cometh not but to steal, to rob, and to kill. Adam's birthright was stolen by the God of this world. To confirm it, give me Matthew 4 verse 8. It's hot. Matthew 4 verse 8. Matthew chapter 4 verse 8. Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 4 from verse 8. Again,
the
devil takes him up.
The devil takes him, the Messiah, up.
Into an exceeding high mountain.
To a high mountain top.
And he shewed him all the kingdoms of the world.
And he shewed him all the glory, the power, the kingdoms of the world.
And he said unto him.
And then he told him.
All these things.
All these what?
All these things.
Meaning the kingdoms of the world. The power of the world. The wealth of the world. Power, influence, dominance, popularity. Everything that people wish for.
Will I give unto thee.
He says it is mine. And I will give it unto you.
If thou will fall down and worship me.
If. In order to receive this blessing from the devil, there is an if. So the devil is stipulating the agreement, meaning if you worship me, I give you the riches of the world. Now, why is this so important? Because what you have to understand is that there is no originality in Satan at all. He is not original. He's not original at all. Everything that the devil does is he sees Elohim do it, he copies it, but he corrupts it. That is everything he does. He takes some of the truth, he thwarts it, and then he makes it his own thing. Because Elohim is so perfect to the point where if he sees a spot or a blemish, he's done. immediately said, this is not mine. So the devil takes Elohim's things, takes Elohim's rules, and then he applies it and uses it the other way around. Why am I saying this? Because, and this all has to do with democracy, so follow me very carefully. What you have to do is that, or what you have to know and understand is that there is a rule of law in heaven. And the rule of law in heaven is not democracy. The rule of law in heaven is total dictatorship. It is total dictatorship. Elohim's word is law forever, eternity and eternity. There's no dispute, there's no discussion, there's no disobeying, nothing. That is the rule of law of heaven. And when Elohim had his rule of law, what you have to understand is when he made this earth, Elohim, what he did was he entered into a covenant with a family. In the beginning of times, Elohim entered into a covenant with a family. He first wanted to enter into a covenant with Adam, but it failed. And ever since that moment, Elohim has been looking for a family with whom he may enter into a covenant. And when we read the Bible, you will see that there came a point in time where Elohim saw that Abram was the man he wanted. So he entered into a covenant with Abram. And the covenant of Abram, he said, in your seed, in your seed will all nations be blessed. But there was one condition. Bow down, worship me. You will have no other El before me. And if you do these things, I will bless you with the dew of heaven. I will give you more children than your eyes can see and your mind can conceive. And in you, the world will be blessed. That was his covenant with Abraham, also known as the Abrahamic covenant. And out of the loins of Abraham, as we know, came Israel. Out of Israel came Judah. Out of Judah came the deliverer of our people, the Messiah, the Redeemer of the world. All that we know. That is Elohim's way. So then, what is Satan's way? And what has this to do with democracy? Satan's way, because Elohim's rule is the rule of Elohim. So what is Satan's rule? What you have to understand is, spiritually speaking, when a man is righteous, he is above Satan. Spiritually speaking, when a man is righteous, meaning Adam, when he was in his perfect state, he was above the glorious angels. After Elohim, it was Adam. That is his authority and his seat. And so the devil was not able to come and try to confuse or overtake Adam, because if it was a one-on-one battle, Adam would have overcome. Because Adam had his in mouth, in his breath, in his spirit, the spirit of Elohim. So he would have consumed the devil by the word of his mouth. So what did the devil do? The devil said, in order for me to overcome this man, I have to make sure that he forgets Elohim and thinks that he is God. That's why when the serpent came to Eve, he said, what has Elohim told you? Eve gave an answer. He said, no. Elohim meant if you eat of the fruit of this tree, your eyes will be open and you will be like
him, like God.
And in this lie, there was a certain truth. So the enemy knew that, hey, the only one that can overcome this man are two people. It is his creator, Elohim, but he will not, because he loves them, and then themselves. So Satan used men in his pride to curse himself, thinking that he is God. So the way of Satan's rule is not the way of Elohim, but it is the rule of men. The rule of men is the way Satan governs this world, using men as pawns for his pride, using men out of his pride to govern this world. So, I hope things are
getting clear.
Starting to, I'm laying some foundation, so when I hit you, you may understand that democracy is not what you think. Democracy is not what you think. It is a big game. It is an illusion played on the highest level.
The highest level.
It is played on the highest level. When I was studying this, I was amazed. I was like, this is how deep the rabbit hole goes. So, as I said, Satan's way of rule is the rule or the path of men. It's the rule of men. So, I send you a link. Give me the second one I gave you. Give me the etymology of the word democracy.
Okay. The etymology of the word democracy.
Meaning the root word of the word democracy. Go ahead.
Government by the people.
It is, no, first is to say from what root it is. I said the second link. I gave you 2 links. The second one. The etymology, yeah, that one. Go ahead. Yeah.
So the government by the people.
Listen, etymology means government by the
people.
As I said in the beginning, the rule of law of Elohim is governed by Elohim. That's why in the first rule of law of Elohim, in the times of King David, you would see that there was a king, yes, but who ordained the king? It was the prophet. And who are prophets? They are servants of Elohim. So who ordained the king? Elohim. Therefore, who was the king of kings? Elohim.
Wow.
That is the rule of law of Elohim. You want to solve Africa's problem? That is the rule of law. Set priests, prophets. Let them, by the election of Elohim, find a man who you shall anoint as king. And let him lead the people in the ways of Elohim.
Wow.
That's it. So, government of
the people.
The people.
It's a system of government.
Listen, it is a system of control.
In
to
which,
govern means to control.
In which the sovereign power.
In which the sovereign power. Sovereign means without dispute. In which the sovereign power
is vested in the people.
It is given unto the people. Go ahead.
As a whole, exercising power directly.
As a whole, exercising power directly.
Or by elected officials.
Or by elected official. Or by what? The key word is elected. Or by elected officials. Does it not say what the root word comes from, what country? Go ahead.
And then it says...
It says...
You can also call it the popular government.
No, the root word. It should say from what country it is. It comes from Latin.
From Greek.
Yeah, why did you skip that?
I didn't skip it.
Okay, go ahead.
It's from Greek,
so,
demokratia.
It is from Greek, demokratia, meaning?
Popular government.
Popular government.
From demos.
Listen, from demos.
Common people.
Which means group of people. People.
Originally district.
Originally a district.
And it says see demotic.
See demotic.
And you add to that word kratos.
So democracy comes from 2 root words. Demos and kratos.
Kratos means rule and strength.
Kratos means rule, strength, power. Demos means people. So democracy means power to the people. Government by the people. The rule of men. The rule of men. Which is Satan's perfect agenda. There was this Satanist by the name of Aleister Crowley who had a famous quote. His quote was, "To thine own self be true." That is the whole of the law. Meaning, you govern your own self. Live by your own principles. Live by how you feel.
Wow.
And by no one else's feelings. It is a satanic dogma. Meaning, it's your life. It's your right. Do whatever you want. In consequence of what everybody else thinks. As long as you are fine with yourself, that's it. Which is the glorification of men, and which is the true spirit of the Antichrist, which people don't understand. So democracy, broken down, means the rule of the people. It means the rule of the people. I hope you're following me. And this is not a thinking which comes from whites. No. or which comes from blacks. No. This is Satan's political system. This is the system through which he governs the world. But we are seeing it predominantly in the West. Why? Because his seat of power is here. That is why you see it predominantly here. That's why we will use America as a backdrop to understand the systematic scheming of Satan to govern the world. So, as we read, democracy definition, it refers to a system of government in which supreme powers is vested. But who gives this power? Who gives this power? In which supreme power is vested in people and exercised through a system of direct or indirect representation, which is decided through periodic free elections. Now, when you read the word democracy, usually you will see that there are oppositions. You have democracy, and then you have the republic. And then some people say, yeah, the republic is the opposite of democracy. And then when you go down, you break it down even more, you will then see words like, as the brother mentioned, communists
and capitalists.
And then you will see capitalists. And these two also are at extreme ends. People usually link Republicans or the republic state with socialism or communism. And then they link a democratic state with capitalism. But lo and behold, look at the definition of republic. The same link now go to the first link I gave you, the other one, the next link. Scroll down to republic and read the definition.
Republic. Self-government.
Listen. Self-government.
Or self-rule.
Go ahead.
That's it.
No. Definition. So if you scroll down. Yeah. Go back. Go down.
Should I just look it up for you?
No, it's good where you are, but keep on scrolling down. You will see it. Go to the place where it says communism, blah, blah, blah. Click there. Yeah, that one. Go down. You don't see it? Okay, I have it here. Let me read it for you. Republic, definition. It says, a government in which supreme power resides in a body of citizens entitled to vote and is exercised by elected officers and representatives responsible to them and governing according to law. If you compare the two definitions of a republic and democracy, you will see that it's exactly the same. That's why the English language is the most hypocritical language you will find on this earth. It's the most hypocritical language you will find on this earth. Because the words have so many ambiguous meanings that I can say one thing, you can say another thing, but we give it two different words, but it's the same. It's just a play of words. So, democracy and republic, if you look at their definitions, they mean exactly the same. So why then is there this breakdown and this division between the Democrat and the liberal? Have you never noticed in America, it doesn't matter who wins, be it a Republican or Democrat, the country doesn't change. The laws don't change. On a surface level, one may remove one may remove the health care, other one, that's just on a surface level. On the deep level of things, government doesn't change. Because whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, whether you are a liberal or you are a conservative, it's just two sides of the same spectrum. Satan is playing you both, because both a republic state or a democratic state is still a rule of men. Meaning men who sit in power make decisions. Men who sit in power break decisions. And if you go back, and then if you now could go to, we have much to cover. The link I gave you, right? The heading where it says communism, blah, 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 blah. Read that one.
Communism, socialism.
Read that one so that you will understand how hypocritical this world is and how they are playing with us. Many of us run away from politics. We don't want to understand it because we think it's so complex, but it's not that complex. They make it sound complex on purpose so that you will be thrown off and will say, you know what, let other people just decide for me. How can you binge watch movies for hours, but you cannot binge watch studying what a word means, which has influence on your life? It's very strange the way this world is going. Read that heading, as I said. First give me the heading, then start reading it and we'll break it down.
The heading: communism, socialism, capitalism, and democracy.
When Negroes hear these words, they run for their lives.
They're in shock.
But they have words like what skunk and marijuana and what words dunk and duff. What does Forba do? They're deaf. These things they know. Negroes know. But when they hear words like communism, capitalism, they run for their lives. They are like, this has nothing to do with me. But if you understand it, you will see that it has everything to do with you. So read it carefully and let's investigate. Go ahead.
Communism,
socialism, capitalism,
and democracy.
Go ahead, read.
Are all among our top all-time lookups.
The Merriam-Webster says this is amongst their top
all-time lookups.
All-time, it means people are investigating. What does this mean? But please, don't think it's you investigating. White people are looking. They're like, hey, what does this mean? We want to vote. So they say that it's among their top all-time lookups. Why? Because it's confusing as hell. Go ahead.
And user comments
suggest
that this is because they are complex, abstract terms often used in opaque.
Yes, abstract simply means it's vague, it's ambiguous. Ambiguous meaning it's like water. The word can take on any shape. I can make my own world and give it a title, democracy, so it means that it changes depending on who is explaining the word.
They are frequently compared and contrasted.
They are compared and contrasted.
Contrasted, sorry.
They are compared and contrasted
with communism. Sometimes equated with socialism.
You see what they're saying? They're saying communism sometimes is equal to socialism.
And democracy.
And capitalism.
They are frequently linked.
You see what I'm saying? Continue reading.
Part of the confusion
stems
from the fact that the word communism
this word
communism has been applied to varying political systems over time.
You know what that means? It means that they just
play ball with
that word. Today he's a communist, tomorrow this is communism. They are just playing with the word and attaching it to everything that has to do with power and control. Go ahead.
When it was first used
in
English prose.
Go ahead.
In the mid-19th century. Communism referred to an economic and political theory.
Now we are jumping. Listen to you all people that love politics. Politics has nothing to do but about the dollar.
Money.
It has nothing to do. There is no politics without money. And because of money, people founded politics. So they say politics has what?
Communism referred to an economic and political theory. That advocated the elimination of private property. And the common sharing of all resources.
People are saying
group of people.
People are saying communism is bad. Communism is bad. That's what they're saying now. What do you think globalization is? Where they break off all boundaries, where people now can have common trade. What you have to understand is Satan's rule of law is to divide in order to unify under his mindset. So he's saying communism has to do with elimination of everyone's own private property.
And the common sharing of all resources among a group of people.
And to give it to a group of people and they will share it to the rest. But
in this use,
my question now is, who is this group of people? Continue reading.
In this use,
it
was often used interchangeably.
It was often used interchangeably, meaning now it is used and then again it's used by another word, interchangeably by?
With the word socialism.
You see, with the word socialism.
By 19th century writers.
So when you read the word communism, you read the word socialism, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. They're just mixing up words, playing with your mind and logic. Go ahead.
The differences between communism.
The differences between communism
and socialism.
They
are still debated.
It's still debated because there is none.
But generally,
English
speakers use communism to talk about the political, economical ideologies.
Go ahead.
That find their origin in Karl Marx's theory of revolutionary socialism.
Karl Marx, the father of communism or modern day Europe, was a Satanist himself. He was a Satanist himself. And all these people in power, when you read about the founding fathers of economy, etc., they were Satanists. And their own objective was, how can we get the world to a position and point where it is governed by Satan's rule of law? Just read on Karl Marx. He was a Satanist of the highest degree. And he came up with this idea of communism. Communism simply means that the government or the state controls everything that you have. And they decide when you eat, when you sleep, they decide your value. What you have, they decide. So if they don't like you, they can take away everything from you and there's nothing you can do. Does this remind you of something in the scripture? I'm sure up until now, it's not ringing a bell. But it should ring a bell. But I will ring the bell later. Continue reading.
So English speakers use communism.
Go ahead.
To talk about the political and economic ideologies that find their origin in Karl Marx's theory of revolutionary socialism.
Go ahead.
Which advocates and proletariatates,
Go ahead.
Overthrow of capitalist structures within a society.
So now they say that the communists oppose a capitalist society. And we all know that because of time, I have to skip some things. Capitalism simply means, read what capitalism means. Because it's saying that communists oppose capitalism. It's the same place. Just scroll down. They will say it there. Or just continue reading. You will find it. All right. Let's go.
Okay.
It's a bit of reading. We will provide a link for you so you can go, break down the definitions, and from there do your own research because we are not your slaves. Go ahead.
Societal and communal ownership and governance of the means of production and the eventual establishment of a classless society.
They are saying communism has a the reason why communism was put in place was to break down barriers, break down classes, so that everyone would be equal.
An establishment of a classless society.
Which is a lie from hell. Why? Because who will establish the classless society? To whom will all the things go to? It would mean normal people would have no power, but the government will have all the power. So if you are part of the government, you will be not part of the normal class, you will be part of the higher echelons. Why? Because you are the one who now decides who gets what. So the whole definition in itself, if you think about it logically, you say this is a lie. Because as long as you can borrow me or give me something, it means you are stronger than me. Even the Bible says that the borrower is subject to the lender. So this whole definition in itself is a lie. Continue reading.
The most well-known expression of Marxist theory.
Go ahead.
Is the
Marxism simply means every theory which came from Karl Marx. So when someone is speaking about Marxism, he's speaking about communism. He's speaking about socialism. So don't get stooped. Go ahead.
The most well-known expression of Marxist theories is the 20th century Bolshevism
Go ahead.
of the USSR, in which the state
Yes.
through a single authoritarian party
Yes.
controlled a society's economic
Yes.
and social activities.
Brother Shalom mentioned Cuba and he mentioned Russia. USSR is this Russia what it's talking about. Russia was a place where there was total communism. And now read and see how it has devastated Russia. But continue reading.
In which the state, through a single authoritarian party, controlled a society's economic and social activities with the goal of realizing Marxist theory.
So you see that the state now has all the power. Go ahead.
Socialism, meanwhile, is the most often used in modern English to refer to a system of social organization in which the private property and the distribution of income are subject to social control.
Subject to social control. Keep reading.
The term is also often used in phrase democratic socialism, which is discussed here.
You see how they are playing with your mind. And I told you, socialism equals communism. And communism is the opposing force of capitalism. But capitalism is closely linked to democracy. But now they're explaining to you as if you are a dumb cow, telling you that there is a phrase known as democratic
socialism.
You see how they are playing with your head? You see how they are playing with your head? They are basically telling you that socialism and aka communism and democracy is the same thing.
They go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. It's just two different sides of the spectrum. Now it will go on to explain to you what it simply means. Now, Dada, continue reading. Scroll down, and then it will say capitalism refers to an economic system. Or just continue reading from where you were. Communism and socialism are both frequently contrasted. Read that one. Now we're getting to the interesting part. So please bear with me, and then we will take off. Continue reading.
Communism and socialism are both frequently contrasted.
You see, they are contrasted
with capitalism.
With capitalism.
And democracy.
And democracy.
Though these can be false equivalences.
Depending
on the usage.
You see, depending on the user, meaning they don't always go against each other, but most of the times even they go hand in hand. If you just understand the way they play. Continue reading.
Capitalism refers to an economic system.
Final breakdown. Capitalism now then. Because we are living in a capitalistic age. I told you guys last week when I was speaking about slavery, I said there's also modern time slavery, which is known as capitalism, but I said we cannot break that down that day. Maybe we'll break it down today. How you living, thinking you are free, are nothing but a modern slave. Continue reading.
Capitalism refers to an economic system.
It refers to an economic system
in which a society's means of production are held by private individuals or organizations.
Now we are getting into the nitty-gritties. Capitalism simply means that people now, and not government, have the means and the money. Privately owned. People have the means and the money privately owned, and the government has little to no influence, no control over what they have. Continue reading.
So capitalism refers to an economic system in which a society's means of production are held by private individuals or organizations.
Stop there, please. Because of time, you can continue reading the rest for yourself. Now I want to break something down. Democracy from a Western perspective. Right? Please, we just had the playing of words. I showed you how they mean nothing but the same. So these words, they mean everything and nothing at the same time.
Depending on usage.
Depending on usage and how crafty you are with your words.
Politicians.
It's the most dangerous profession. The better you can lie, the more you will exceed as a politician. So now, I want to explain some key points so that you can understand democracy from a Western perspective and how it is governed. I have maybe 5 statements or 4 statements, and I have to break them down in 35 minutes.
Wow.
So let us go. 1, United States. I said we will use that as a backdrop. Many think the United States is a country. Many think the United States is a country. But the United States is a mass of land, but it is not a country. The United States of America is a corporation.
A corporation.
The United States of America is a business. It is not a country. It is a business. It has a CEO by the name of the president.
Wow.
But behind the CEO, there are stakeholders who are known as the hidden hand. And it has employees. And being a country or being a business, having employees, they must have a product to sell. If you don't have nothing to sell, you are not a business. Now, who do they sell?
What? Who or what?
What do they sell? What you have to understand about you is that you are a living livestock. They trade in people. They sell people. What do I mean by that?
Have you?
When you are born, the first thing you get is a birth certificate. You are not allowed to leave nowhere without this certificate.
A code.
And the birth certificate is immediately linked to your national security number. What is the national security number? It is through this number that they can track you all of your life. Whatever money you make, if it goes into the system, half tax. How do you think they trace you like that? Let me explain what I mean with you are a slave from the moment you are born and set foot on this earth. In a European Western system, you are the country's property. Now, what made this so? Because it was not so from the beginning. What you have to understand, looking at America, I will explain something. When America first started, America started with an idea. The idea was the people in power were like, let us find a place where we can have Satan's dominion manifested. They were looking for an utopia for Satan to dwell, where all the plans and the agendas of Satan would come to a full display. Just like Elohim had it, Jerusalem. They were looking for a place which Satan could call his own. So secret agents were dispatched and they found what was then known the country of the Indians, the Americas, North America. And slowly but surely people began to come there from all nations of the world. But these were strategical people. They became a group and then it became a country. I'm trying to explain in layman terms so you can understand. And then when it became a country, it became a people, etc., there was something that happened. Because as I told you already, just like Elohim has a covenant with a family, the devil also has his spies. Just like Abraham was to rule and govern and influence the world through his doctrine, the devil also has his spies, his elite family. His seed. So, when they became a country, and when America was a country, let's say roughly around, because America's something around 400 and something years old. That's how old America is. Around the year 1840 or 1870 or something, there were wars in America. And because of the wars that were in America, the country went into a state of debt. The country went into a state of debt. And when the country went into a state of debt, what you have to understand about this world is the way wealth is seen. Wealth, before there was paper wealth, there was wealth in resources. So if you had land, you had wealth. If you had gold, you had wealth. If you had diamonds, silver, you had wealth. But when the country in the 1840 or 50 was in a state of revolution, because of war, the country became impoverished and poor.
The wars of the 18th century.
Yes, in America, the civil wars as they are known. The people in America became impoverished. And when the people of the country became impoverished, the government then signed an act. And the act which the government signed, I have it here. The act that the government signed was known as the National Banking Act in the year 1863. And this National Banking Act enacted the introduction of the dollar. That was the first time when paper currencies and money was known as a national tender, a legal tender in America, where instead of gold, you can now have the dollar to represent your money and your value. But at that time, the country was not yet completely poor because every dollar was backed up by gold, or it was backed up by silver, or it was backed up by diamond or by land. So if you had like a value of gold in the value of 1 million, instead of carrying the 1 million, you could then go to the bank, deposit your money there. They will give you a value representing or they will give you a note representing the value of that gold. So every paper that they printed was backed up by a natural resource. So the bank then was introduced. So they had what? So they had day. I will disclose day by the end. So they had 1 foot in the door. Then 70 years later, in the midst of the 70 years, they had their plan to make sure that the whole country was in total debt. So the Great Depression came. In every history in America, you will read about the Great Depression in 1931 until 1935. There was a Great Depression because there were wars and wars and wars, and because people were fighting against each other, there was no production, everything halted, so the country went into a greater debt. And because the country went into a greater debt, now the people who had their gold and their silver and their land backed by the banks, and the banks gave them paper notes, but it was with an interest. Now they were not able to pay the interest. So the bank were like, because you didn't pay the interest, and we have raised the prices over the years, now you have to give us your land and everything you owe. Otherwise, you don't have anything. So, because of the Great Depression, the banks now took people's lands, they took people's gold, they took everything you had as a possession now was owned by the bank. That is how you see this world. Even in Europe, if you buy a country or you buy a house, you may think you've bought off the house, but you didn't buy off the ground. So if you're not paying taxes for the ground, they can still come and take your house. The houses are owned by banks. Everything in this world nowadays, it is owned by banks. But the problem during the Great Depression was that because people became poor, but money kept on being printed out because economy had to be revitalized some way, somehow. Now they kept on printing more paper than there was gold to back it up. So at a certain moment until 1935 or 38, there was no more gold or resources backing up the money.
But money was still being
printed. And the ones who had the power to print were banks. So at that moment on, the Natural Reserve introduced the dollar as the only legal tender. So your gold didn't mean anything. Now their paper money meant the world. It meant everything. So when that happened, the banks now had total control of the whole country. Now here comes the problem. Here comes the problem. To whom was the country indebted to? Because just think how can a country be in debt? To who? To who? To who? To who? to the bankers. But are they not people like you and I? So if the country is in debt to the bank, the National Reserve Bank in America, America is in debt to the Natural Reserve Bank in America. So, but to who is the Natural Reserve indebted to? Nobody knows. Nobody asked that question. So, the government then, right, was in problem. Because they had to pay money to an invisible hand called the Natural Reserve, but they had no stock option. They had nothing to back up the money. So then the bank came with an introduction. Hey, if you cannot pay us now, pay us in the form of people. Pay us in the form of people.
Labor force.
Labor force. So from henceforth, give any people, every person, a number that will equate to his value. A human life is around 60 years. In that 60 years, we'll make sure that he's inside of the labor force working so we can tax off his taxes. And by his taxes, you are decreasing the debt you owe us. That is the day when you became a living stock. That is why I said you are nothing but a born slave.
Aye.
Not just us blacks. The whites also themselves. This group is not given to white or black. It is given to some elites. It is given to some elites. So that's the first point I wanted to make.
The first
This is
one.
the first one. You are a living stock. You are a commodity.
Wow.
The government has sold you as a slave to pay off the debt that they created. That's why you have to go to work. If you don't go to work, you can't pay the bills. If you don't pay the bills, you have nothing. If you have nothing, they put you in jail. When you go to jail, you work for free. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? You are not free. You are a slave. You put on a suit, you are still a slave.
A well-dressed slave.
Until you don't control your money and you have to go to the bank to get a paper that they print, you are a slave. That was point one, because of time. Now, as I said, the big question was, who owns the banks? Who owns the banks? And where did this family get their power? Point two, banks and other major companies now and multinationals, they are the true powers that control the country. How do they control the country? They cannot come out and expose themselves like this. No. They control the country through politics. That's why when you read the definition of democracy and a republic state, it is the government of the people. But the power is invested in elected officials. A president is not an elected official. The true word is selected officials. A president is never elected as they tell you they are. A president is selected by the hidden hand. Just like you didn't know that you are the hidden dollar. There's also a hidden hand. The president is not chosen by the people. The president is chosen by some few. Who are the some fews? Those that have the money. Banks and multinational corporations. That's why you will see your president, when he runs for campaigns, he is always sponsored.
By someone.
Hey, I will sponsor you 150 billion or million for your campaign. But these are the laws I want in place. That's why you will see in the elections of when was Trump elected?
A few years ago.
During the elections of Trump versus Hillary, they show you that there were two votes. There was the popular vote and the electoral vote. Based on the popular vote, Hillary won.
That's the vote of the people.
That vote, popular vote, means the vote of the people.
Wow.
What you call democracy. Hillary
That's your vote.
won. That's your vote. That's your vote. But based on the electoral vote, Trump won. Lo and behold, it was a shock. the world over. That morning at 5, when it was announced to the world that, hey, Trump won, people were shocked. CNN was giving polls. Everyone expected Hillary to win because she won the popular vote. But your vote counts for nothing.
Wow.
Your vote is as much worth as your dollar. Nothing. A ghost.
Backed up by nothing.
What you define as democracy, I define as the illusion of inclusion. You think you are part of the system. The system is using you as a slave. Your vote means nothing. Your vote means absolute. Your vote is nothing. Democracy is a scam. It is a way of means through illusion to control the masses, thinking that they decide and their opinion matters, which is a lie from the pits of hell. So, as I said, your president is selected by the hidden hand and not elected by you. They give you Republic, Democrat, capitalism, communism. You are fighting those play of words. Whilst they themselves, they lunch together, they eat together, they sleep together, they make plans for you. And they say, hey, when they come out in the open, they say, I'm against him, I'm against him. But behind the scenes, they are one. They receive their orders from one. Now, as I said, seeing that they are the ones who fund campaigns and presidents, they make the laws. That's why you will see how, and I said, when you look at the law, now let's break down. I told you guys that society is broken down in pillars. There are 7 pillars that define modern day society. Education, what you think. In school, they teach you to be an accountant. They teach you to be a doctor. They teach you to be a businessman. But there is no court in school that teaches you how to live life. Normally, if you think at it very carefully, there are basic things every school should teach, but they don't. They don't. Mandatory lesson. They should teach every kid. Every kid should actually learn. Let's say you ought to learn how to work the land. You ought to learn how to cook. You ought to learn how to sew. Basic skills, they don't teach you. I have a degree, a master's degree in international business. Do you know what it means? It means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing. If I want to start my own business, I have to do additional research because school taught me nothing. What it taught me was get a degree, go apply for a job, and be part of the system to be a slave. Education is teaching you how to enter into the labor force, which is what? Part of their democracy, their plan. Another pillar, government. This pillar is the pillar that it corners the whole of the world. Governments, meaning they put people who are supposed to represent you, but they are representing the few, lying to you. You think you are being controlled by people that have your best interest in heart, but they have people's interest in heart, and they use you as pawns. Another pillar, media, news, and entertainment, through which they propagate what they want you to know, what they want you to think, what they want you to see. What you see on the media is maybe about 1% of what is really going on in the world. If you watch media or television or watch too much news, they want to bring you and condition your mind to certain things.
Place you in a bubble.
Place you in a certain bubble, unaware of realities in hand. If you are in America, you're watching news concerning Russia, you will think Russia is the place where Satan lives.
You will hate them.
If you go to Russia, you watch American news, you will think America is the place where demons swim. If you are in Europe, you watch news about Africa, you would think in Africa, if you set foot there, you die of sickness. If you are in Africa, you watch news about Europe, you would think Europe is the country where people swim in milk and they drink gold. Mass deception. Putting people against each other, and in the panic of the people, they control. They control. Now, as I said, because of time, in the few minutes left, let me reveal the hidden hands. Let me reveal the hidden hands. Let me reveal the hidden hands.
It's a heavy teaching.
As I said, there was a Bloomberg article. And the Bloomberg article says that the 1% of the world control 82% of world health or wealth. It means we are more than 6 point something billion people. But 1% controls 82% of the wealth of the whole world.
Demonic balance.
So are you thinking, is this by coincidence? Is this a sheer act of luck? Are they so much brilliant than us? 1% controls 82% of the whole world's wealth. And this 1%, I'm not even talking about the 26 billionaires who control 50% of the world's wealth. No, listen, they are billionaires. A billion has 9 zeros. But the people I'm talking now have about trillions. A trillion has 12 zeros behind the mark.
Messed up.
So, based on this article, these people are known not as companies, they are families. I will give you a few. The rest you can do for yourself. The first family on the list are known as the Rockefellers. Now, the Rockefellers, they own the banks. About 90% of banks in America in the hands of the Rockefellers. The founding father was known as John Rockefeller, who was known as the first millionaire in the Commonwealth. So the first millionaire playboy in the Commonwealth was known as John Rockefeller. The Rockefeller family control about 90% of all the banks in America. Family number one. So to them, being a billionaire is a small game.
You are a small boy.
You're a small boy. They deploy and put millionaires in place. Family number one. Family number two. No, I'm sorry. The Rockefellers don't own the banks of 90% of the banks in America. The Rockefellers own 90% of the oil in America. Oil. Rockefellers own it. About 80%. American world. Oil, Rockefellers. The second family, the Morgans. The Morgans, they own the banks and are also responsible, amongst other things, for funding World War II on both sides. That's how these families control the world. They set up wars. Because when you have wars, you need money, you have to spend money. So they're like, hey, you need guns? They sell you guns, you pay them off. They take control of the country. During World War II, the Morgans were controlling both America and Germany at the same time.
Fighting against each other.
Fighting against each other whilst they were getting rich. And you are becoming a slave to your country. Morgan's family. Number two. Number three. So I said Rockefellers, Morgans. Number three are the Rothschilds. The Rothschild, they control the banking system, not of America. They control the banking system of Europe. It's in their hands. So every money you see print, be it euro, dollar, whatever, it's them. They say that the wealth of this family is unknown. They don't know where to start or where to end their calculation. Their wealth is unknown, it's vast. The Rothschild, third family. The fourth family, the royal house of Saud. the royal house of Saud, who you know as the Saudi Arabia, the royal family. They are known as the royal house of Saud. They named the whole country after them. It is a law in Saudi Arabia that anyone of the royal house can exercise any profession he wants without question. The royal house of Saud, they control all the oil in the Arabian world. They are part of the elite house. This other family, this is family number 5 now, the house of Baruch. Now the house of Baruch is a Jewish family. Let me just, maybe this is coincidence for you, but for me it's not. Of all the houses I will mention, maybe of the 7, 6 are Jewish families. So you yourself draw a conclusion. How is it? Why are only they? So the house of Baruch is a Jewish family, and they are the consecutive advisors to every U.S. president you know. They advise both the U.S. presidents. It doesn't matter to them which party you are, because they know it's the same. They are advisors to the U.S. presidents, but also to the UK British parliaments. They were known as the most trustworthy advisors of, what was his name? The great English strategian. What was his name? What was his name? Winston Churchill. The smartest man in the British history. Was advised by the house of Baruch. That's the 6th one. So they control all the advising. It was even said at the house of Baruch, they were the inventors of the world Cold War and the inventors of the weapon known as the atomic bomb. Was the house of Baruch. So they are the masters of war. Another family, I have 2 more, is the house of Murdoch. The house of Murdoch, they control media itself.
Media itself.
Media itself is controlled by the house of Murdoch. Every news station you know, media station you know, it may have sub-umbrellas, but the head, the corner pillar of media, the house of Murdoch.
The cornerstone of media.
Also known as, they are a Jewish family. They are situated in Australia, where it is known that they control the whole media of Australia. And they went on having subsidiaries in America. They control media. The house of Murdoch. So what you think, what you see, they are behind the scenes. Another family, I will give you 2 more, then we are done, is the royal house of Windsor. Do you know who the royal house of Windsor is?
Tell us.
It is spearheaded by Queen Elizabeth. So the royal house of UK, the UK royal house, their family, is known as the royal house of Windsor. They are also one of the elite families. It is said no one in the world has more possessions and land than Queen Elizabeth. If you see the list of the things she owned, you will be shocked. They are also the hidden hand of Europe. That's why every European president or family, even UK president or English president, all of them find their roots in the royal house of Windsor. And the royal house of Windsor themselves, they say their roots comes from Germany. The original name is the Blumenbach. So they all come from one family. The final family I want to mention because of time. Write all these things down, do your own research. They are known as the Oppenheimers. Now the Oppenheimers is once again a Jewish family owning most of the world's gold and diamond reserves. A Jewish family where there is no gold nor diamond growing out of the earth. They own most of the world's gold and diamonds. That's why when you go into Antwerp, Belgium, all the shops where they sell diamonds and gold, you will see a Jew with twisted hair and beard selling you gold from your country. So people, to conclude, these families don't have billions, they have trillions. So don't even mention Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates. They are small pounds. So to conclude, dear people, democracy is 2 more minutes. The end game of democracy, from a Western perspective, is to unify the world under the rule of men and not under the rule of Elohim. And money, as I said, is the hidden control. And it will be key to all of this. So be on the lookout, as I wrote, for the final cataclysmic event, which will lead to the total collapse of Western economy. And when the Western economy collapses, people are in panic. Then the families behind the scenes will now introduce a unified World Bank system. And when they introduce the unified World Bank system, then you will see that without their approval, you cannot buy or sell.
Revelation.
Then Revelations 13 will be enacted in front of your eyes. So this government job you have, whatever, it is a question of time before they start asking you to do things you don't want to do. And when you refuse, they will fire you. And then either you comply and sell your birthright, which you don't even have because you are a slave, a stock option, or they leave you to die and starve. So people, learn to employ yourself. Try to look for something which you can do, which will guarantee your livelihood outside of getting money from your boss. Find a trade, whatever. If you are from another country, far from the West, be it from the islands or Africa, whatever, try to find something for yourself, a business, and do it. Learn farming, whatever, do it. Because we are living in Europe's borrowed time. And when the time comes, their world government system will either destroy you or you will run for your lives. So this was democracy from a Western perspective. The illusion of conclusion. Of inclusion. Shalom.
One thing that we have always proven during this show is that there are layers and levels to the things manifested before your eyes. The scripture says that it is the glory of the Most High to conceal a matter, but it is the honor of kings to search it out. And one thing that we are really trying to do is search out all the things deemed worthy or unworthy and lay it before you that you may understand. This is the hour of restoration, and this was the third show of this month's theme. The theme is called White Supremacy, and we have touched the benefits of slavery, so who benefited of slavery. We have touched whitewashing of history, and today we have touched democracy, the origins thereof, the end game and the end goal of democracy. And next week we'll touch down with a quiz, simply seeing what have we learned to revise and go over the things that we have touched. This is the hour of restoration. Tell a friend to tune in, and we hope to see you again next week. If you have any questions or there is a topic which you think we really have to touch or talk about, even if it's an article, something you read, send it to us in a private message or underneath the Facebook live video. We'll try to make it part of what we do. This is the hour of restoration, and with these words I leave you, and I hope to see you again next week. The hour of restoration. Shalom.
Take over in this place. Take over, Jesus.